Hi, been a while. And today we're going to briefly discuss both a 1995 novel, The Mysterious Skin, and its 2004 film adaptation. This movie has been discussed on YouTube quite a bit, so I'm not going to bring anything extraordinary to the table, I believe, but like we all love to do here, we compare the book and the film. Yes, we do. Welcome to Check That Book, a special place where you and I, yes, you and I, get acquainted with arguably the most disturbing pieces of literature ever written. And sometimes we take a look at their film adaptations. Most of them, at least. Some are not as good as the others. Yes, we'll get to it eventually. I am going to talk about the Millennium Trilogy. By the way, before I do, you can check out my original video on the books themselves and my introduction and, to a degree, interpretation of them. Stieg Larsson's work is amazing, in my not so humble opinion. But today we're talking about something completely different. Thus, The Mysterious Skin. In 2004, Greg Araki shakes us with his adaptation of Scott Hames' novel, Mysterious Skin. The story revolves around two boys, if you don't remember, Neil and Brian, who were both molested by their little league coach as children. Each boy processes the trauma in radically different ways, and that is basically the premise of the story. We have two boys, two completely different personalities. The confident and charismatic Neil, who is hypersexual and seeks validation, I suppose, through his questionable actions. But then again, that's his coping mechanism, right? His response to trauma. And we have the shy and introverted Brian, who tends to um, tends to put the mystery label on what has happened to him and believes he was abducted by aliens. Yeah, that was the short introduction to the story. I speak a bit deeper about it in my original video. Make sure to check it out in the description below. What's with the film though? Is this movie as disturbing as the story it's based on? Well, surprise, surprise, it is. Stark, minimalistic, emotionally heavy. It balances the raw realism with dreamlike sequences, which makes the viewing experience quite unique, if you ask me. Suggestive, rather than explicit, treatment of abuse in the film makes it maybe slightly easier to watch for some, because Araki purposefully avoids gratuitous imagery, thus making it a rather good movie on its own, not necessarily just a disturbing piece of cinema. The film is actually quite conservative in this regard, so if you are not a fan of the disturbing per se, but you're still on this channel for some reason, maybe you're here because of the poetry, maybe you want to keep the genre alive, make sure to check out my real section where I recite various poetry from all over the world in pathetic attempts to keep the genre alive. But again, whatever the reason you're here for, if you want a good movie recommendation, The Mysterious Skin 2004 would be it. It really isn't that gratuitous. Yeah, it has its rough moments, but it's not your balls to the walls kind of disturbing. It's not Salo. It's no Serbian film. It's it's heavy on an emotional level. A lot of things happening in the film, they're implied. And yeah, you might ask, well, why do we need such films? As an answer to your question, I have a video which I'll link in the description. Why do we need the disturbing? The disturbing anything. Art, cinematography, books, etc. Why do people view such content and why do they create such content? I've spoken about it in my video essay, which I invite you to check out below. In the book, we do have richly developed inner lives of both boys. Forgive me if you can hear the rain. I'm filming in the attic, okay? My office is basically in the attic, and yeah, the technology is good, but not good enough sometimes. So if you hear the rain, let's pretend it's part of the background noise music. Back to our topic. The film is faithful to the book, but again, necessarily condensed. The stellar performances by two lead characters, they speak for themselves naturally, and even add their own charm to the story. And I think that's only good. Specifically, the performance by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It's a very daring role to take on. So yeah, I would like to highlight that moment there, especially for a young actor. That was some serious shit to go through and to portray. And I would like to point out that, unlike with, for example, the same Sallow that I've mentioned prior, this is a daring performance, not because you have to do all sorts of crazy shit on camera, right? That is daring as well, in its own category. But to me personally, when it's psychologically challenging, it's a bit more. It's a bit more, and it's a bit more complex, maybe even a bit more difficult to do. Visually bleak, emphasizing the isolation and desolation of our main characters, the environment in the film also, it matches the original description that's in the book quite well. The book describes Kansas with some nostalgic decay, if that's even a proper combination of words, nostalgic decay. That's how I felt it. So yeah, in overall, the film is rather faithful to the book, with some minor differences here and there. But I suggest you give it a try and come up with your own judgment. Read the book, watch the film. Both are good. Both are just good pieces of work, both in literary worlds and the world of cinematography. What makes this story more compelling, even, and unique is that the trauma is not treated as a plot twist or background. It is the emotional and psychological center of both works, both book and the film. The frankness with which the story confronts child molestation, especially from the victim's point of view, makes it unsettling. There is no sugarcoating in both works, and I love that. There's no moralizing or not even a proper resolution to this tale. It's just a showcase of events. It's just a story of how things happened, how things were, and that's it. Draw your own conclusions. It's open, I suppose. Psychologically, it is rather open. You just feel sorry for the boys, right? But there is no, like, investigation. There is no punishment. It's not focusing on that at all. It's just a raw storytelling. And it has its own place. It has the right to be out there, and I admire it for that. Well, thank you all so much for watching. If you would like more book versus film and more discussions and introductions to some truly emotionally powerful works of both literary and cinematographic universe, then make sure to subscribe, and meanwhile, give this video a boost in the form of an erect thumb, as usual. You know the drill. I thank you once again, and I shall see you all as soon as possible. Goodbye.